Hello, I'm SERENA, and let me tell you my story with Pariser Dermatology. I started out as a patient a long time ago, and that was in our old Williamsburg office. Back then, my English was quite limited, but the way I was greeted at the front desk, the way I was taken care of by the physician, impressed me so much that I thought, oh boy, I would love to work here. When I was ready to leave, I was actually approached and asked, do you have a job at this moment? And I thought, wow, this must be a very, very odd question. Well, I said, no, but I am a nurse. I would love to work here. They gave me the application form, and guess what? The rest is history. And that was in 1997. Since then, I have been running around from one office to another when we were rather small. Now, since we have expanded so much, I'm happy that I actually can stay in one location, and that is a Williamsburg office. But even that has grown tremendously. I feel so privileged to still work here after all these years. As you can tell, I am a little bit accented. I am from Germany, and at the beginning when I first started, all my family was still there. And of course, flights with children and so forth was quite expensive, so I couldn't afford it to do it every year or every other year. So it was always every 3 to 4 years. And I needed more time than just 2 weeks, and the company accommodated me, which I thought was wonderful, wonderful. Now let me tell you about Dr. Harry Pariser. He was a wonderful, wonderful person. I never had the privilege to work with him as a technician or as a medical assistant, but I spoke to him quite a few times on gatherings, and back then we still called them family gatherings. It was wonderful. I did have the privilege to work with Dr. David Pariser and Dr. Robert Pariser, and I must say I have learned everything through those two doctors. I'm just a little bit sad that I don't work with them anymore, but oh boy, it was a wonderful time. I'm almost at retirement age, and I hope that I can do a few more years, maybe even go in part-time. But I know when I finally step out, I will miss this place tremendously. Thank you.
I started at the front desk at the medical tower with my big purple glasses, and worked the front desk, check in and check out for a long time. One day we were seeing patients, and Dr. David Pariser sort of flung the encounter form out for me to catch, and he kept on walking past, and he stopped and he backed up, and of course I had caught the encounter form, and he said, you know, I think you're on the wrong side. And I said, okay. I never thought, never dreamed that I would ever be a clinical person. And so I started to help out more. I started to learn more about patient care other than greeting patients and getting them checked in for their appointments, or checking them out and sending them on their way with a nice new prescription to make them better. So I started learning how to room patients and manage prescription refill calls with the providers, and I found this love for patients, and over time that developed further. And after I had my daughter, came back to work full-time again, like most people would, and had the opportunity to do some training as a dermatology technician. That's hands-on. That's really, doing minor procedures, biopsies and excisions and so forth. So I had the opportunity to become their hands, and that was amazing. For someone who graduated from high school but didn't finish college, and I was given this amazing opportunity, not just to help take care of patients, but I had earned the trust and respect of the doctors to do this. That meant so much to me, and really has sort of helped me become who I am, for sure. I have no doubt that that's how that occurred. And so I started doing procedures, and then Dr. David Pariser felt like I had some more to offer, and I started training other derm techs for their care as well. And when I left just a few years ago, almost every derm tech at that point had either been trained at some point either by myself or by SHELLY. It was really great to see that I was able to have an impact, not just on for the patients that I cared for, but it extended even further. But that was just a piece of it. That was just a piece of what I did here. At one point I was in management and helped hire some of the staff that are still here, which is hard to believe. And then I also was a big part of patients coming out of clinical trial into general dermatology when all biologics first started, and navigating the insurance and prior authorizations and helping patients get through all of those bits and pieces, which were foreign to everyone at that point. And from that, I had help. I would call one of the girls for help to call and check on a prior auth, or hey, can you call this pharmacy? And from that we now have an entire department for prior authorizations for biologics. It's a huge part of what the practice offers today. And I got to be a part of that in the very beginning, not realizing how that was going to change lives, or what that was going to become further down the road. And it actually became part of what I do now. So even though I've left the practice and sort of moved on, I'm still taking care of patients. I'm still helping in that biologic world to help other offices get their patients onto therapy, so that they can live healthy and happy lives also. So this practice really has had a huge role in my life, and definitely made me who I am today, and I am so incredibly thankful. I'm thankful for the friends that I made here, and co-workers and the providers. We always talk about the Pariser family, and that's what we are. It's not just Dr. David and Dr. Robert and Dr. Harry Pariser. That extends further into all of us that have worked with them, and even further out into the additional providers in the additional offices, but also our patients that we became close with, our patients that we've seen generations now come through, and we've treated them and helped them along. We've held hands with them, and we've celebrated, we've cried with them, all of those emotions, because they are a part of us. They're not just patients. It's not just a number. It's not just a name. There's so much more behind it. So truly blessed that I had the opportunity to be here as long as I did, and just so happy that it impacted me in such an amazing way.
You come to work every day, you're coming to work with your family. One of my most fondest memories is of Dr. Robert. We were still in the medical tower, and my daughter had to come for an appointment. And Kira is sitting in the front seat with me, and she says, "Oh my gosh, look at that car." At that time, we were in the same parking lot as the doctors, and there's all these BMWs and Audis and anything you can think of, Lexus. And I said, "Oh my goodness, well, which one?" She had just turned 16, so of course she was gonna get her license soon. And she said, "That one right there." And I looked and I laughed. And so we went upstairs, and I told Dr. Robert, I said, "Dr. Robert, my daughter is in love with your car." It was a 1980s Volvo diesel, and it was a tank. And so about 6 months later, he comes into my office and he says, "It just so happens that we're going to get rid of the Volvo, and if your daughter's still interested in it, I'd like to sell it to her." Well, she was so excited when I told her, and I was like, "Oh, Dr. Robert, that's so nice. She's been saving her money. How much are you charging, or how much would you like for it?" And he said, "How about $1?" And so he and Miss Mary came into the office the next week with the title. Miss Mary handed me the sunglass case, and inside of the sunglass case was a $20 bill and a pair of Coach sunglasses. And to this day, my daughter has that $20 bill in her glove compartment because Miss Mary said to only use it if you needed it for a real emergency. The closing of the medical tower was a huge undertaking. It was a lot of hard work, and everyone pitched in. I've never seen teamwork like that day where we all moved from the medical tower to our brand new office in Norfolk. I had the privilege of going down the elevator on the last day after the last patient with both Dr. Robert and Dr. David. And Dr. David told me a really great story about Dr. Harry, who I was not ever able to meet. He said that when he graduated college, he asked Dr. Harry if he had a present for him. And Dr. Harry said, "Oh yeah, of course I do." And he handed him this envelope. And he thought that there was gonna be like a wad of cash in that envelope. He opened up the envelope. Turns out that the envelope had a receipt that showed all of the money that Dr. Harry had spent on Dr. David's education. And I thought that that was excellent. I'll never forget their facial expressions when they walked out of that elevator. I know it was a really proud moment, and I'm sure that their dad was extremely proud of how they continued his legacy. I have been here for 13 years, and I am extremely honored to work here, to have a part in changing people's lives for the better with clinical research, and to work with Dr. David and Dr. Robert. I would not want to be anywhere else.
I'm Dr. Kevin DeHart. I came from Seattle, Washington to Pariser Dermatology in 2012. My brother gave a glowing recommendation of Pariser and said, "You need to come to this practice. It's amazing." I haven't looked back since. It's been a great experience. It's family here. We continue to grow, and I've seen offices being built. I've seen new additions to staff and providers, and we're serving the community, and I love every day that I work here. Probably my best story for Dr. David that I have is I was here about 2 weeks, and I was working with Dr. David Pariser in our Suffolk Carrollton office, and we were seeing patients, and he came out of a room and he said, "Hey, can you see the rest of my patients for the day? I gotta go." And I said, yes sir, let's do it." My name is Kelly DeHart. I've been with Pariser Dermatology for 13 years in the next couple months. Been in the area, originally from Virginia, but Southwest Virginia, and been here for 13 years, of course. Been with my twin brother, Kevin DeHart. He's with the practice as well, and he's been with the practice for about 8 years, so we've been together in the practice for quite a while. Originally got into dermatology in medical school, of course. Originally wanted to be a urologist. I thought that was going to be my life's dream, and a dermatologist came in to speak to us in the second year of medical school, and everything changed for me and my twin brother, and we ended up going into dermatology together. came to Pariser from Cleveland, Ohio. That's where I did my residency. Interestingly, Dr. Molly Smith was also at that residency doing her Derm Path Fellowship. She left a year before and came to Pariser, and she invited me and another colleague who's no longer with the practice down, and we came, and now it's just one big happy family. So Cleveland was a direct route to Pariser Dermatology, so there's a couple of us, Dr. Molly Smith and myself now. Pariser's been my home for 13 years. It's an excellent practice. I'm very happy where I am, and I hope to be here for many years, and I hope to end my career here. I want to be just like David and Robert and be here for the long term. It's an excellent practice. It serves the community, and it's great patient care here. I'm happy to be here, and I'm fortunate to be with colleagues that care about patients.
Hi, I'm SHELLY Carpenter, and I started at Pariser Dermatology as a shy little girl from the Eastern Shore of Virginia. And I was going to move to Tidewater, live at the Y, and work at McDonald's because I wanted to leave the Eastern Shore. I didn't have to do either of those things because Dr. Harry Pariser and his sons, Dr. David Pariser and Dr. Robert Pariser, gave me a wonderful opportunity, and I'm still here. That was actually back in January of 1984. And I joke and say that I was skinny and both the Pariser doctors had black hair, so something happened to all three of us. Dr. Harry gave me an opportunity that I was never given in life. I wanted to be a doctor, but didn't get the right breaks in life to make that happen. And I started at the reception desk, answering the telephone and making appointments. When you had an appointment book and you erased patients' names when they canceled and then you rewrote what the name should be. Back then, a mouse was something that you caught in a trap. It wasn't a technology device that we used on computers. We didn't have computers back then. And I had an opportunity to work my way all the way through. Anything new that we started, I sort of helped out with that. Any opportunity I was given, I read books, tried to learn everything I possibly could. I took tests out of the back of the journals because I wanted to be the best that I possibly could. Dr. Harry, after I'd been here for a while, he nicknamed me Nurse Hassenpfeffer. And I thought he just gave me a Jewish name to be funny. And he told me that it meant hot pepper. And so I've since looked that up, and pfeffer is a spice, and I assume it to be hot. But Hassenpfeffer is actually German for a rabbit stew. So I don't know if that meant I hopped around a lot or what. But whenever given opportunity, I jumped on it and tried to take it and run with it and learn different things. I used to joke the boys, I call them, Dr. David and Dr. Robert, that if Alice P. hadn't been their mother, there was a lot of other ladies who wanted to be their mother, because a lot of Dr. Harry's visits started with ladies kissing him on the cheek. Obviously, that was before we were germphobics, but they'd come in, they'd kiss him on the cheek, and then we'd get started with the visit. There are many stories to tell of patients over the years. We were reminiscing not too long ago about how we're seeing second and third generation patients. People that we saw as little children are now grown adults and parents, and some of them are grandparents themselves. It's just amazing how things have changed over the years. We had a program called a Pathfinder program, and we said we were on the cutting edge, and anything new that came along, we wanted to be the ones to be involved and do that. And Pathfinders actually during the war were the ones with the lanterns, and they would light the way in the pathway for the airplanes during the wars to land. We lit the way in dermatology because if there was something new to be learned, we were all about wanting to learn it, take off with it, and make things happen. When I first started here, it was the same weekend we opened up our Kempsville office, which was our second office. Over the years, we went on to open up 7 offices, and then we've now gotten down to 6 because we've combined 2 offices. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate everything the Parisers did for me. They found something inside me I didn't know was there, and that was a teacher. And I've had opportunity to teach a lot of people, and because of the technology we have today, I've heard back from a lot of people. And to date, I know of 10 different people who have left Pariser Dermatology that maybe I had a little something to do with their life, as well as the Parisers, who've gone on to be doctors, DOs, nurse practitioners, nurses, and then some of them have just left just to become a parent, and that's okay as well. But to get notice back from them that, hey, you had something to do with it, and when I took my derm class, I remembered things that you told me, that makes a big difference. We don't just get set free as a derm tech to work on a patient. We practice on a pig's foot. A pig's foot is the patient that we do our training on, and then we're faced with a real patient. You're never left alone. You're never set up for failure. Somebody's got your back. It wasn't until a few years ago when I did an outreach program, and I went all over from Richmond to Elizabeth City to Virginia Beach, and I lectured over 50,000 people during a 5-year span, talking about skin cancers, things to look for on your skin. And it's amazing the people that you meet who've never been to a dermatologist. Back when I did those lectures, I did some research, and there was 77% of our population had never seen a dermatologist. I'm now back on the floor, and I'm lucky to be with patients every day. And just last week, in one of our offices I work in, I had 3 different patients say to me, an average age from 22 to the gentleman was 48, 3 of them told me, "I've never seen a dermatologist before, I'm scared, I don't know what that means." I had to take a moment and explain, your skin is the largest organ of your body, you've got to take care of it. And they looked at me in amazement. People just assume that this covering that we have, that covers who we are, they just assume that it's gonna keep on working. It's not a Timex watch, it doesn't keep on ticking, we have to take care of it. And that's very important to me, and it's important when I see people, I try to let them know about the importance of wearing sunscreen, how to protect yourself. A lot of times people say things to me like, how do you preserve the youth? You preserve the youth by protecting yourself from the sun. Sun is very damaging. So you either need to be physically blocking yourself, mindful of the hours that you're outside, and then also wear your sunscreen. But many years ago when the Eastern Virginia Medical School started a PA program, I asked Dr. David, I said, is that something I should entertain the idea of doing? And being very conscientious about money, I sat down and I did the math of how much it would cost to go to school and how much it would cost me in lost wages to do it. So I stayed on, and now we have physician assistants working amongst us and seeing patients, and everybody's given such a wonderful opportunity that if you come through the door, I think that Pariser Dermatology will make a difference in your life.
Hi, I'm Becky MARUSHIA. I'm a clinical research coordinator with the Research Department, Virginia Clinical Research. I've been here for 28 years. I know I must have started when I was 10, because I can't possibly be old enough to work here for 28 years, but truth be known, I have. I came into the door not knowing what my job would be and not knowing it was going to be where I was for 28 years, but I fell in love with my job. I've watched so many wonderful outcomes for patients. I've seen children come in the middle of summer in long sleeves, long pants, hiding their hands, hiding all of their skin, to going through our clinical research studies, finding new medications that really make a difference on their skin, and seeing them come back in short sleeves, in shorts, and thoroughly enjoying showing their skin. You see a completely different personality in these children, and adults as well, but the most meaningful to me has been the changes that some of these studies have done for children.
Hi, I'm Dr. Rob BAER, one of the seasoned dermatologists in the group. Dermatology to me has always been kind of the family practice of the skin. That's what attracted me to dermatology, is that I can take care of little kids that are 3 months old. I can take care of teenagers. I can take care of the mom, the dad, and the grandparents. So it's this nice age range. You see every walk of life. It's just a wonderful practice. And so much relies on your ability to still do physical diagnosis, and it's what happens between you and the patient. In dermatology, you're looking at the outside of the patient, you're trying to figure out what their problem is. You might have certain questions on the inside that's going on in order to make the diagnosis. So you still do one heck of a lot of physical diagnosis in dermatology, and less reliance on lab work, scans, etc. So that's what drew me to it. And what drew me to this practice is when I first came, David and Robert were here. They just hired a wonderful young Mohs surgeon. She had been there just a couple months before I came, Dr. Kim Phillips. And so they always referred to me as really the first non-Pariser regular dermatologist. So in the wake, there's been all kinds of other dermatologists and now physician assistants and nurse practitioners that are practicing dermatology. And always our attitude has been give a good place for you to practice. And we have such wonderful supporting characters that help us practice. I absolutely love coming to work. I have these brilliant DAs and DTs and front office staff. They make the patients so comfortable when they first come in to see us. We're so efficient these days. Practice is, people say, how long are you going to practice? And, you know, I'm going to just keep going because it's getting easier and easier. My support is better and better. We've always had an attitude of educating everyone in the environment as well. The more employees know about the field of medicine and dermatology, the better they can deliver care. And it works. All of us are so busy because we have that kind of attitude, and we try to be fair with everyone getting good salaries and insurance, and just try to make it still kind of a family enterprise. And that harks way back to the origins with the original Dr. Pariser. So it really is a testament to the attitude of the Parisers that made our practice flourish. I simply love doing it. I'm getting better. The more you see, the better you get. And also we're surrounded by newer and newer medicine. Upon coming here, I was thinking, geez, you know, I had about 5 different creams and ointments to use, several pills, maybe some old ultraviolet light, and that's how I had to get people better. Now there's more and more medical technology and drugs and medicines available that we can now cure people. We can really fix them. In fact, you know, I kind of joke, if I can't fix you, you're in trouble. It's the truth, because there's so many different things that I have available, and you know, you run through all those different things, and we work in concert. If I can't get someone better, I don't hesitate to get one of my partners to help. Dr. Robert and Dr. David are still wonderful referral colleagues of mine, and between all of us, we can usually get people better. And I wish everyone that comes behind us to have as much luck in practicing as I have had. I really look forward to going to work every single day, and best of luck for everyone.
Okay, hi, I'm Linda SERWATKA. A little backstory is my husband and I were both in the Army, and we came to the peninsula from Frankfurt, Germany, and I was stationed at Fort Eustis for 3 years and then Fort Monroe for 3 years. And during those times, I would attend the Tidewater Dermatology meeting and got to meet Dr. Harry, which was a pleasure, and also Dr. David and Dr. Robert. And then when I retired from Fort Monroe, I was very honored when Dr. David offered me a chance to join the practice. And so here I am. That was in 1999, and I was with the practice for 14 years. And I must say that our offices to start out with were nothing like this palace here. I started out in the Main Street office, and which was quite old, and apparently still is, and eventually Churchland, and then as practice expanded, I kind of mainly worked on the Newport News and Williamsburg offices. I was pleased to find that we had a new dermatology technician, Peter Prince. Peter Prince and I went back a long way. He was a dermatology technician when I was a resident at Fitzsimmons Army Medical Center. at that time. Probably still, residents didn't get their own dermatology technician, but yet I got to know Peter, and what a nice young man he was, and was very blessed to have him as my derm tech, because even though he was on island time all the time, and I'm kind of the northern German, let's get at it type of thing, I never had a complaint from a patient. He just knew how to take care of the patients, and his slow Trinidad accent, keep the waters calm and keep the patients serene.
I'm Heather Miller. I started with Pariser in 2001 as the first physician assistant. I started the same year as Dr. Chang. It was a lot of change that year, a lot of new faces and new new directions for the practice, I guess. I worked primarily with Dr. David and Dr. Robert for a long time, and then Dr. BAER for a little while. I worked in every office, I think, at that time, except for Williamsburg. At some point, I started proctoring students from EVMS, PA students, and ultimately that's how we hired our second PA, Larissa, and that was probably 3 or 4 years after I started. And then the physician extender part of the practice just sort of exploded from there. I think I was the first dermatology PA in all of Tidewater, actually. It was interesting, the people that sort of got me connected ultimately with other PAs and other practices through the years were actually the pharmaceutical reps, because they would oftentimes, the PAs were the ones that would be talking and interfacing with the pharmaceutical reps. So we did ultimately have a small Tidewater Derm PA group that used to meet, and we would bring in speakers. That was a good time. So much has changed since then. I was working here when I had both my kids. Just such an important part of my life. I don't want to cry. So many memories. My husband was a Navy physician at the time, and he was a resident when I started. And lots of long days, long nights. I had babies. I had no family here. Shelly, Lisa, Clary. We celebrated kids' birthdays together. We were, truly like the Pariser family. Was probably what made the biggest impression on me. Was just the support of everybody at a time when I didn't have any family here locally. The Parisers, always innovative, always on the cutting edge, always looking for the new, latest, greatest. It just made sense for them to kind of start with the first physician extenders in dermatology in the area. Dr. David, I think, maybe a year or two after I started, was president of the AAD. And so that kind of got us, even on a bigger scale, kind of brought attention to PAs in dermatology, I think, from his exposure. And, he did a lot of speaking. And so that was a great asset, I think, too, for all of us. What else can I say? Nothing but good memories and good things to say. Ultimately, I made the decision to stay home and raise my boys, but there's no place else I'd want to work.
Alrighty, my name is KAYTLYNN. I'm the clinical supervisor at the Norfolk office for Pariser Dermatology. The joke is I was born here. Dr. David actually gave my mom a bonus when I was born, so that was kind of my first paycheck, the first down payment. So I grew up in the halls of the medical tower. I remember, mom telling me to be quiet or else Dr. David would know I was there, and that was this big scary thing. Now he's a big teddy bear. But I basically started working here in the scheduling department back when it was the phone dungeon in the top of the medical tower with no lights. I started on breaks from college, and then eventually transitioned to VCR for about a week. And then they took me from VCR straight into becoming a doctor's assistant. And that's kind of where I began my hands-on clinical journey. Actually, when I finished college, I came back here full time. At that point, within like a year or two, I began my dermatology technician training. And now here we are, 2021, and I'm the supervisor. So I've been doing the most.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Clary Stamper. I have been a part of Pariser's team for 22 years as this past June. I have seen a lot, survived a lot, and am excited that we are celebrating 75 years of this practice. Let me see, where do I begin? I was hired in 1998, and I worked on the phones in the beginning. I had an MA degree, came here with an MA degree, but started, was my first real official office job. From there, I went on to do refills, and I got into the clinic part. At the time, Dr. Marjorie Scott was one of the physicians here, and at first, she was tough on me. I think she made me cry a few times, but she did a good job because I learned so much from her going in and out of rooms with patients, and just the whole world of dermatology, which I had never known until I came here. So from there, I moved on. So I became a DA, became a derm tech. I tried to learn some billing stuff, but it just made me sleepy. That just bored me. And I know billing's important, don't get me wrong. But I didn't really get that under my... So the other, moving on, I tried to learn all the positions with Pariser, just to kind of learn how this practice worked as a whole. Like I said, I was new to this whole world, and I'm just very grateful that I've had the chance to be a part of such an amazing practice. It's kind of funny when you have insurance through the practice and they read your card and it says Pariser Dermatology, you seem to get a little more respect from other providers out there. It's nice. Oh, you know David Pariser? Not if I'm acting ugly. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, that's a joke. You just scratch that. One thing that I think makes Pariser unique from different practices out there, and I can use this kind of because most practices don't have a call center or phone room. Most practices don't have a prior authorization department. We have those. It takes some of the work off the clinic, and the phone room definitely takes work off the front desk. So it's one of those things that, yeah, we might have different departments, but as together we work as one team because we're all here for the same thing for patients. I can tell you that I learned that probably maybe second or third year I was here. It was right when I started being a DA before I became a derm tech, and I happened to get the opportunity to go to a doc retreat with all the docs. And let's see, back then it was Dr. Hunter, and of course Dr. Marjorie Scott was there, and I think I had just started working with her now that I think of that. Anyway, I learned a lot on how docs operate, how they think, and there was one doc who said, we are here for the patients. That stuck in my head for all these years. No matter what we're dealing with or what's going on, I think the best thing for any of us to know is that we're here for the patients. And I use that every day in my job.
Hi, my name is Christina Holtzinger. I am the Medical Records and Customer Service Manager for Pariser Dermatology. I started here right after college when I was 22 years old. That is 16 years ago now. I'm showing my age. Pariser has come a long way in the 16 years that I've been here. One of the more relevant advancements that we have made is on the electronic side of things. We have moved into electronic health records and electronic forms of communication with our patients. Going forward, I know Pariser is always looking forward to ways to continue those advancements to better communicate and more efficiently communicate with our patients, to improve patient care and communication. On the customer service side of things, I handle all of our patient feedback, both the positive and the negative. All feedback is welcome. We most often hear the negative over the positive, but I know the positive, in the long run, the positive outweighs the negative. But any patient that comes to me with a concern or a suggestion about our practice, anytime I can leave them feeling as though they've been heard and that we're going to address their suggestion or concern is a win for us.
I'm Dr. Molly Smith. I am a dermatologist and dermatopathologist here at Pariser, and I'm in my 15th year of practice. When I was a medical student here at EVMS, we did not have a department of dermatology. So when I did my med school rotation, I spent my time with Pariser Dermatology, rotating with Dr. Robert and Dr. David and Dr. Marjorie Scott. And they were such great mentors and really got me interested in the field of dermatology. I also spent a rotation with Dr. Robert at the microscope doing dermatopathology, and that's probably where I originally got my interest in dermatopathology. Thankfully, during med school, Dr. Tony Hood and Dr. Evan Farmer came to the area, and they were able to start a department of dermatology. And my classmate Shannon Heck and I were the first 2 residents to graduate from the residency program. So it's been really amazing to spend these years as part of Pariser, both back in medical school and then during my residency training. We spent a lot of time here at Pariser as well. I spent 2 years doing a dermatopathology fellowship in Cleveland and then came back to practice here. And it's been a really unique opportunity, kind of a circle of life type situation where I was the trainee and now I'm participating in being clinical faculty and play a role in educating the future dermatologists. So it's been a real honor to have the Parisers serving as such a great mentor and inspiration for me in my practice.
My name is Melissa Alcox. I started with Pariser Dermatology in September of 2017 when I was Melissa Thomas. And I have loved every minute of it. It's been a complete learning experience every day. I do have some funny stories. So, I remember when Dr. Molly and Dr. Robert would have these like random stuffed animals with microorganisms like all over the office because they would represent some of the funny microorganisms that they would see under the microscope. I remember tons of really fun and crazy Christmas parties. Those stories I can't really talk about right now. We had the earthquake at the medical tower, and I was in a room seeing a patient, and all of a sudden the entire building started to shake, and we've obviously never had anything like that before. So we just couldn't really believe what it was. So everybody evacuated, and we just kind of were in awe that we had just experienced an earthquake in the medical tower. Thanksgiving at Pariser is awesome. Thanksgiving is, Dr. Robert always cooks a big turkey, and we all bring sides, and it's just awesome. Halloween is the best at Pariser. It is like everybody goes all out, even the people that you would expect wouldn't care about Halloween. Everybody dresses up, the whole entire office is decorated. We have people from all over coming in just to see everything, and it's awesome. I remember a lot of our PA students, including Lindsay Seddon. Shout out to Lindsay, because she used to be a PA student that was working with me, and now she's one of our PAs. I remember Amy Volkman as a student and Chris Roberts as a student. I remember Shelly used to go around doing educational talks, and she was such a good speaker that everybody would ask for her to keep coming back. I remember volunteer screenings at the Boardwalk Art Show and at the Steel Clinic and the Cannon Clinic. And some of the kind of cool stuff from that is I remember diagnosing several melanomas from those screenings. I remember the downstairs cafe at the medical tower. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. The food was terrible and the service was even worse, but we all ate there because it was right at the bottom of the medical tower. And I remember we used to go in and order our food, and then we would get yelled at, and it's like we would get in trouble for ordering the wrong thing. And the orders would never come out right. Like, it would always be the opposite of what you ordered, and you would just sort of get what you get. It was very much like a Seinfeld episode every time you went there. Terrible food. There was really nothing good about it, but for some reason it felt like home when we would go there. The breast cancer awareness walks that we used to do as a company, as Pariser, and I do remember when several of our staff members were diagnosed, and just how awesome it was to see everybody just come together as a family. This place is definitely a family. It's more than just a place of work. I'm so incredibly happy and privileged and honored to work here at Pariser. And I certainly feel like I'm part of the family.
Hi everybody. I am happy to be kicking off this video, which is to memorialize the 75th anniversary of the founding of our practice. It's hard to believe the enterprise has been going on this long, but here we are. So I suppose that means we're doing at least something right. I guess by now many of you have seen some version of the timeline of our practice, which documents in excruciating detail some of the events that occurred in the practice, correlated with events that have occurred overall in dermatology throughout the world. Good reading. In addition, I want to introduce to you folks who have not met him, the founder of our practice, Dr. Harry Pariser. That sculpture, by the way, was done by my mother, who is a pretty darn good amateur artist. That is really what he looked like. The sign was a little bit later. That was a gift from a patient that occurred after David and I joined the practice, which Dr. Harry proudly displayed on his desk to make it clear who was the real deal in the practice. Some of you may not realize that the name of our specialty was not always dermatology. In fact, originally it was dermatology and syphilology. And there's a reason for this. When syphilis was a brand new epidemic disease in Europe in the late 1400s and early 1500s, it had to be diagnosed clinically on the basis of evaluation of skin lesions. As such, the physicians of the time who were skilled in cutaneous disease became the physicians who handled this sexually transmitted disease, and then ultimately, by extension, all sexually transmitted diseases. A lot of things have changed over the 75 years, and a number of things are still the same. The relationship between a dependent patient and a hopefully understanding physician, that still is somewhat sacrosanct. A lot of the periphery of how we manage patients and manage the medical care system, of course, is totally different. Many improvements in terms of our tools to be able to manage difficult diseases, and some regression in terms of our ability to access these. These are fights we have all the time. But nonetheless, the practice has tried to stay at the cutting edge of our specialty, and I assume will continue to do so. A little optimistic to think I'll be around to celebrate the centennial of this practice, but if I am, I'm hoping we can look back on what we're doing today and have a sort of nostalgic chuckle, such as we're having looking back to the 75 years up to this point.
I'm David Pariser. In 1946, 75 years ago, a young dermatologist from Philadelphia named Harry Pariser came to Norfolk and started a practice of dermatology. At the time, he was the only dermatologist east of Richmond in this state. I joined him 30 years later, and my brother 2 years after that. And for 15 years, in the 1970s and 80s, we practiced together, and I told people that I was in the family practice of dermatology. In the 1990s, the practice of medicine changed dramatically, increasing regulation, insurance company scrutiny of everything we did, as well as managed care, all changed the face of our practice. And we made the decision at that time that one way to combat this change and to be able to maintain our ability to treat our patients fairly and properly as we wanted was to become independent, maintain independency, and become a larger practice. We expanded our services, offering dermatologic surgery, Mohs micrographic surgery, and over the 30 years since the early 90s, we've now expanded to 7 locations from Virginia Beach to Williamsburg with 18 dermatologists and 6 physician assistant nurse practitioners and a crew of estheticians. We provide all services in dermatology: medical, surgical, cosmetic. We do clinical research through our affiliate, Virginia Clinical Research. We're very active association with Eastern Virginia Medical School, and in fact, we helped start the department back in when the EVMS started, and have been associated closely with it since. And as much as the practice of medicine has changed over the last 75 years, I should say the first 75 years of this practice, there are some things that haven't. And what hasn't changed at all has been our desire to provide every patient with compassionate, up-to-date medical care. You know, patients come to us often in a dependent position. They're afraid. They need not only to have their physical problem addressed, but they need to make a bond with their physician. Mutual trust of the patient and the physician is something which has never changed, and I hope will never in the next 75 years. So what's the future of this practice? Well, I surely don't know. There's no way I could have predicted what it was going to be 30 years ago. So I think that what we have to do is we have to create the future, not wait for it to create us. And by doing so, we're going to be able to maintain those core values that have not changed in the last 75 years, and hopefully will never change in the next 75, and that is that sacred relation between the doctor and the patient.